Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 2 of our play-by-email multiplayer gameplay with Advanced Tactics Gold. So it's been quite a while since the previous episode. This is, I feared how this series might go. Unfortunately, my opponent has had a few medical setbacks, let's say. He's gotten pretty sick, and it's delaying his participation quite a bit. So we're on turn 4 as of now. I think it's been a week and a half about since my last video. I was hoping to get one over the weekend, but we just didn't make it far enough. Anyway, so here we are. This is the very beginning of turn 4. So he hasn't done his turn 4 yet. We just both finished turn 3, and now it's my turn to go. Since the last video, what has happened? Well, you know, as you'd expect, not a whole lot. And this video, not much will happen either, so I'll keep it pretty short. One interesting thing is that I have decided on relatively small like unit types. Let's just take a look at that. So my normal infantry, I'm just setting up with 30 MG. I just set up at 24 and 6. I have an assault, which is going to have 4 mortars. Right now I don't really have enough mortars to supply these units. So there is a question about whether I'll lower this down to like 30 and 2 or something like that, just so the mortars, I mean, I don't have very many mortars to begin with, and I'm not sure when I will produce them. My engineers is my standard 20 and 2, and lastly I have just a 20 submachine gun group, just because I don't have very many submachine guns right now. It probably would be nice to up this a little bit, but in my opinion, from my perspective, there's so much frontage to cover. I'm going to try to keep the the unit quantity higher by just decreasing the soldiers per unit. So my division count is going to be a little bit small. You could think of this as kind of, I forget the actual name, the square versus triangular versus just 2 brigade formations from World War II. Like, I think the Italians used only 2 brigades per infantry division, whereas the Americans used like 4 brigades typically, and the Germans used 3, stuff like that. The triangular, square, all those kind of formations. I'm not 100% sure about any of that, but the idea here is that I'm kind of going with a very small soldier count per division, just so we can populate the front. Okay, so that's a lot of talking about nothing. I think I've shown all my templates. Good. Now, what are we going to do on this turn? Well, one interesting problem that I'm having is I'm not able to get a whole lot of production, especially in terms of trains, just because I don't have enough raws. So I've already upgraded this raw. It's now level 2. And I'm actually going to use a second engineer to upgrade a second raw. It seems necessary. Now, these are not the ideal positions, right? These are the 2 closest to the front. So not good, but I think the raw drain is usually just for the very initial setup. Once you get the number of trains you want, which for me is, we're just about there, we're closing in around 20, and I feel very comfortable with the number, with 20. And we just push the units to the front. Another interesting decision I made is because I wasn't able to get tanks with the number of political points I had to make a decision between artillery, which I chose, and light tanks, standard light tanks. So I chose artillery because, in my opinion, flak is much less useful than armored cars. So instead of purchasing standard light tanks with the political points I had, I went with armored cars. Now this is the first turn I started building jeeps, so turn 2 was all armored cars, just 8. Now last turn I decided to just have a little fun. This also decreased my dependency on raw for a turn because armored cars take 10 each. Jeeps, which cost half the amount of production, so I build twice as many jeeps, but they're at 1/5 the cost for raws. So basically I cut the number of raws down. The additional 4 armored cars would have been 40. The 8 jeeps is only 16, so I saved myself 24 raws. And that was necessary because you can see we're not in very good shape in terms of raws. We're barely eking out more than we have. And an interesting point that I should make is it doesn't matter how much you'll be getting next turn. You're only allowed to use up to the amount you have at the end of your turn to build. So let's just say I was building 10,000 raws next turn, but I only had 224 available. I can't loan myself from the future 10,000 any of the amount that I want to build. So I'm stuck with this number 224, no matter how much green I have. That only affects what I will build on the next turn, not what I'll be building, until my next turn. Hope that's not too confusing. Okay, so what do I want to do? I upgrade this to level 2. I'm going to start moving these engineers into position for upgrading oil, though, because that'll probably be my next step. I'm going to kind of just probably keep some of the engineers by the oil. This one I'm actually going to move to the front because he'll think about building a road. This guy's also going to actually be moved away from the oil he's on, and he'll also be a road builder over here. Let's get these guys forward. And you can see I haven't specified who is going to be what quite yet. I'm just kind of letting my main headquarters, the subordinate ones, the frontline headquarters, accrue various units, and then I'm going to see what's left over, what I can use, what I can make out of whatever's left over. Same thing with this guy. I think he probably has 3 mortars, so we'll probably end up, maybe we'll do a group with 3 mortars for the assault, just because I have this 3 mortar left over for each headquarters right now. This one certainly doesn't have 3 mortars, no. Oh, it does, yeah, 3. But there are more mortars coming in, so, So essentially what I'm going to do is pull all these forces just with their headquarters, transfer a lot of units around, and we'll be figuring out exactly what kind of composition to make as the turns go by. So this is turn 4, and I don't think we are going to declare... We're not going to have war until like turn 10, because at least for the time being, I'm actually able to help my father out a bit with his preparations. He's not quite as experienced with this game, so I've been telling him, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. And I'm not trying to eke out an advantage in production. Basically, we want to have more or less even forces to make the game more exciting. The strategy is completely wide open. We can choose whatever we want, but in my opinion, it'll make it a little more interesting if one person doesn't just steamroll because of production. That would be a pretty boring series. So from production standpoint, we're trying to do more or less the same. So you can see that he's gotten his 2 factories up, which is what I told him he should do on the first turn, just like I did, well, on the second turn, right? And I told him to upgrade his raws if he's having problems, that he should get trains with his main headquarters. Yeah. So this will be a very brief video. I'm just going to show you what my production is now. I'm going to switch my production back from take away these jeeps to full armored car. I just don't have the political point ability to invest in light tanks quite yet. I'm going to have to just run away with armored cars for a bit. And this is an interesting question. Is it better to get twice as many armored cars? Because I do get 8 armored cars as compared with 4 standard light tanks. Is it better to get 8 armored cars than 4 standard light tanks? Well, I mean, technically 2 armored cars shouldn't beat 1 light tank in a straight up fight. However, if you're not fighting light tanks, then the armored cars are just as effective against infantry, especially, just comparing the level 1 versions, which is another disadvantage of armored cars. They can't be upgraded. So here we go, back and forth, and I guess that's the way the game is balanced. It's intended this way, that there's not really a wrong decision. If the game was to last long enough and standard light tanks were upgraded, certainly, and if we were able to populate a lot of the surface area of the map, then light tanks would be clearly the right choice. The same way that medium tanks would become eventually a better choice than light tanks if you were actually maxing out your stack points along the front. We're obviously nowhere near that. So, well, anyways, that's my ramblings about various ideas on where to go with units. Let's get down to it then. So yeah, let's go back to 8 armored cars. You can see that this puts a huge strain on our raw supply, which means I'm going to switch over back to trucks this turn, because these are 20 each, but trucks are only 4. So it's going to help. But in order to keep an even number, I'm going to go to exactly 30%, which will give us 8 trucks flat. And that's probably all the trucks I'll need for the rest of the game. As far as supply goes, I think we're doing really good. Let's check. Yeah, we're at 10,000 supply stockpile already, but that's good. I think that I'd rather build up supply right now. If I have leftover at 0, I'm going to start manipulating these so that, let's get 4 engineers. Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I like having this number, 29 submachine guns pouring in per turn. That's good. We'll be able to get several forest and urban guard submachine gun divisions out. I'll probably end up increasing that template from 20 submachine guns. Yeah, like I already said, maybe to 25 or even 30. So, all right. So as far as staff goes, that's another thing we've been building a lot of. Let's all lower these because we're all at an even number now. OCD rules the day. I just don't really like that leftover thing. So let's get these guys to build a few more staff. Because, again, this would take me to a fraction, which I don't want. Very important, the game doesn't tell you if you're not producing enough. If I left this with only 90% of my 100% production, it wouldn't tell me. So make sure you double check and ensure that you're using your full production for each city. I did have a mistake in my Let's Play series number 2, where I didn't do that, and it didn't end up costing me. I still won that series. Spoiler alert, but... Okay, so production's probably right where I want it. Something like this. Yeah, again, in my opinion, the production, I don't want it to dominate the game. It's going to be really boring if one of us wins just because we outproduced them. That's boring. Much, much more exciting if the little tactics we use are what ends up being like the victory. So, to that degree, I'd almost prefer a smaller map where you started with a larger army and your cities were like at 10% of their production capability, which I'm sure as I get to know the map editor a little more, I might be able to set up something like that. Okay. Then, do I want to do anything else? Yes, last thing I want to do is just transfer some units to the front. First and foremost, I want to transfer some staff, now that we have plenty of staff. Let's get 30 staff. Let's see how much real capacity we're using to do this. Let's get 30 staff into each one. Okay, 30 more here. Oh, that was 20. Let's get 30. Okay, and let's put 30 here as well. Good. All right, now next things next. I want to try to get each of them up to 3 trucks, and I'm actually going to try to use the truck land capacity to do this transfer. So this one's at 2. Let's get them to 3. We're not going to be able to get them all up to 3 because I don't have that many trucks even. Whoops. So this is now at 3. This one's at 2. I think this one's at 1. This one doesn't have a single truck. So let's get a single truck over here. We can no longer use the land capacity for transferring the trucks, so that's fine. I think, right? Oh, we can actually. We can use 1 truck here. And let's try to get at least 1 truck by rail over here. Good. And yeah, actually, we can move this other truck in there as well, just because next turn I'm going to be producing more trucks for my main headquarters. I'm going to hopefully have like 3 trucks still in my main headquarters if he absolutely has to transfer stuff off of the rail line. But that's not the preferred situation. Okay, so now let's start getting these armored cars moved around. Actually, for armored cars, I'm going to move them directly myself. So let's see. Do I have any blank unit templates? Probably not. None here. None here. Yeah, it looks like it's just time to build a new template. Okay, that's fine. So, new formation. Let's set yellow for this formation, even though that's really not who ultimately will possess all of these armored cars. I'm going to just put all my armored cars into this group. In fact, I'll put all my Jeeps in there too. So I think they move the same. Let's take a look. Compare with the Jeep. Okay, landscape rules. Yeah, they each move along the road at 10, which is what I thought. And it looks like, in fact, they're both wheeled, right? Yeah, they're both wheeled. So they have like the exact same movement action point allotment. Good, so let's get these guys forward. We'll move them here on this turn, and they'll just move to the front without rail capacity transfer, which is going to save us a little bit. We will need to use rail capacity for the artillery, for example. And we're also going to probably want to build some more horses when we do that. We only have 12. We only have 12 horses and we have 8 artillery. I mean, we only have 8 artillery, but we have 12 horses. We only need 1 horse per artillery, so we're in good shape there. That's not bad. I'll transfer the horses later, though. Let's transfer, let's say... Actually, I mean, yeah, this is interesting. I could actually manually move the artillery to the front. Alright, well, for now, let's just move 1 artillery to each group. It doesn't really matter, right? We have probably 6 more turns, so we have plenty of time. I just want to make sure I'm not neglecting the opportunity to use a lot of this rail capacity each turn to start pushing forces as far forward as possible. And actually, I'll use probably the remainder of my rail capacity pushing some machine guns forward. And that's basically how every turn has been going lately. The last 2 turns that you missed on camera, off camera, is just doing a lot of this. 1, moving troops forward. 2, fixing production. 3, actually it's the first thing I usually do, is I'm making sure my engineers are trying to do something productive. And then 4, did I mention production already? 4 is production and 5 is transferring units forward. If I duplicated one of those, then there's only 4 items, I guess. But something like that. That's how every turn is going. Nothing exciting. So thanks for watching this episode, and stay tuned for next. I'll probably do the next break at around episode 8, and we should actually see some units forming at the front around that time. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.